Despite my eternal love for this country, there are things I initially found weird, some things didn't make sense to me, and some habits just very different to what I used to. Some things I will mention may not be relevant just to Australia, maybe it's relevant to all Western countries, but for me, coming from the Europe, they are quite different. So if you're interested in Australia or planning to move here, this video will be useful for you so you know what to expect when you come here. I have been living in Australia for 6.5 years. I lived in 3 different cities in 2 different states, so things I will say won't be relevant just for one city or one state. They're really applicable to the whole country. And thing number 1 is seasons of the year. And this of course relates to all people who move from Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere and vice versa. So obviously your seasons swap. Winter months now be called summer and summer months now be called winter. And yes, weather is aligned with these names and it sort of makes sense why it's like that. But still, when you live 20 plus years, calling December a winter month, and it's really hard to get used to new norm. And even after almost 7 years here, when I talk to people, sometimes I forget and call the months the old way. People look at me weirdly and correct me. Especially it's hard because of the association with Christmas and New Year. For me and most of the people who came from Northern Hemisphere, these holidays have a direct association with snow, frost, cold weather and traditional winter attributes. But when it's 40 degrees on a Christmas day, you just don't feel that magic vibe and festive mood. Even with all the decorations and Christmas tree, it's still not the same as from the childhood you have different association with holidays. So yeah, it's really hard to shift your mind in terms of winter holidays, as it's a summer in Australia during this time. Of course, it's not a big deal and it doesn't affect me somehow, except that my birthday now in winter when it's raining and it's cold compared to what it used before it was in summer. And that I really miss all that winter vibe during winter holidays. Now you have to travel somewhere to feel that. So it's just a habit I had to get used to. And sometimes when you watch news from the rest of the world, maybe you feel a bit outsider because it's not quite relevant to your country and the seasons in your country. But again, it's not a big deal, it's just a habit you have to get used to. Next thing is cold weather and swimming in the ocean in winter. Breaking news, it is cold in Australia. Okay, it may be cold in Australia. But the lack of central heating in Australia makes the houses really cold. Sometimes it is colder inside than outside. And it took me a long time to adjust to it, and I think I still probably haven't adjusted to it. It may be 10 degrees in the morning when you wake up and you just can't get yourself out of the bed at this temperature. Of course, there are air conditioners and heaters, etc., and you use them when it's cold, but as you probably already know, electricity is not cheap in Australia, and you would have to save it somehow and wear more warm clothes and use it less compared to what it was used to be in my own country. And I don't think it bothers Australians. I think they're just used to it, because I cannot explain how people can swim at winter at 8 degrees in the morning or wear t-shirts when I'm wearing padded jacket. Those people seem like a superhumans to me. I remember the time when I was living near the beach in Sydney and I was on my way to the train station. It was very cold. I was wearing padded jacket, scarf, gloves, and I was still shaking. And then I saw 2 surfers who were heading to the ocean, just wearing wetsuits, but they were barefoot. And I just couldn't look at them, it was so cold. But yeah, it's all explained that kids are used to this temperature from the young age. You would often can see the picture that mom and dad are wearing jackets, beanies, and their kids can be just wearing t-shirts and be barefoot. It's okay here. Or on the weekends when you go out, you would often see girls wearing summer dress in winter without any jackets, and when it's 7-8 degrees outside. I wish I could do like that, but I'm always cold here. Next point relates to cultural differences, particularly when it comes to hospitality, visiting someone or inviting someone. This was my own observation of my friends who moved here. I cannot say it applies to all Australians, but this is what we noticed. It of course may be just a Western cultural thing, not purely Australian, but again it's quite different to what I used to. In my culture in Eastern Europe, when you invite someone to your house, you're expected to work your ass off, to cook the best food, to clean your house, and cook not just regular food but special food and lots of it. And of course you have to entertain your guests, make sure they're happy, make sure they're not bored, not hungry, and God forbid you run out of food or drink. That's a disaster party. So in my culture, parties are for guests. Hosts have to be alert, and usually it is not expected to the guests to bring anything unless it is a birthday or anniversary. Most people will bring something, but usually it is not expected. What we noticed here that when you're invited to a party, you are expected to bring a dish, some food and drink. The host will provide some snacks or maybe some drinks, but in terms of main foods, it's your responsibility to bring something. My husband told me once he attended a party, it was all males, but what the host said, I have barbecue at home and beer, bring your meat, sausages, and I'll cook it for you. That will be our party. So that's how can it be here. So there's no such a thing as putting your guests in the first place or worrying about not having enough food or drinks. The host have to be relaxed, happy, having fun, and do not worry about guests getting bored. Of course, I found this very unusual at the beginning, but then I kind of like it, because now, instead of being exhausted after hosting a party, now you can have fun with your friends and shift your focus from food or entertaining your friends, like having fun together with them, and actually be with people. Do not be their waiter. But it's still very funny when I talk to my parents from Ukraine and tell them we're having a friends coming over tonight. They always want me, what are you gonna cook? Will be enough food for everyone? It's quite interesting cultural difference, and I really like this one. Another cultural difference relates to yes/no questions. People here don't like saying no because they sort of want to maintain the relationship and they don't want to sound rude. So they will say yes for most of your questions, but in reality it means maybe. For example, you invite someone for a party and they say yes, of course, we'll come. But then during the last minute they text you that they cannot make it because of some reason, and they apologize, they won't be able to come. So you sort of feel that they didn't want to come in the first place, but they didn't want to offend you and be rude to you by saying no. So they just said yes, which meant maybe for them. And then when something else came up, or I don't know what's happened, they just told you, sorry, I can't come. And it is so common. So compared to my culture, when people say yes, it means 99% yes. Even if you have to cancel your own plans, if you promised yes, you'll have to keep your promise. You'll have to commit to it. So to sum up, yes for Australians means maybe, and yes for my culture means 100% yes. When it comes to no, when Australian says no, it means definite no, and you would barely hear them saying no. But in my culture, no means maybe, because people sometimes shy or uncomfortable to say yes. So they say no, whereas it means maybe. So for example, someone coming over to your house to pick up something, and it's your dinner time, and you decide to invite them to join you for the dinner. My people 90% of the time would say no, even they would like to join. And usually the other party, the host, supposed to ask again, said, it's okay, of course, we have a spare chair, we have a spare food, don't be shy, come over. So they will start persuade person, because they know the person says no, but it may means maybe. What I noticed here, when you're offered something and you said no, they're not gonna ask you again, they're not gonna start persuading you. Don't expect them to start convince you. For them, no is no. They respect your wish and your answer. So I hope I didn't confuse you with these yes/no questions. But to summarize, when Australian says yes, it means maybe. When Australian says no, it means definite no. While for Eastern Europe culture, my culture, and maybe, but I'm not sure it relates to Asian as well, when we say yes, it's 100% yes. But when we say no, it means maybe. I'm not saying one is good or one is bad, it's just a cultural stuff. So let me know in the comment if you noticed such a thing. I'm really curious to hear, is it just me and my interpretation, or is it a thing? Next thing is shopping hours. Generally in Australia, shops are open around 9 AM and close around 5 PM. They may be open until 9 or later on Thursdays, or if it's a big city central location. In general, you have to be very organized here to make sure you've done your shopping for the day. I currently live in Perth, Western Australia, And on Sundays, supermarkets and shopping malls won't open until 11 a.m. and they close around 4 to 5 p.m. So it's really short shopping window compared to what I used to. In Ukraine, most of the malls are open until 11 p.m. every day. And it is not only shops, some services as well. If you want a manicure or haircut, you will be able to leave your work at 6, go to a shopping mall and find a hairdresser or a salon who will do your manicure. Here you'll have to manage your time more effectively as everything will be closed at 5 p.m. So yes, for a consumer it's a bit frustrating, and I'm still getting used to it even after so many years. But from the point of view of the people who do all that work, it's really good at they are able to maintain their work-life balance. So for people who work in this industry, Australia is a really good place to have that work and life balance. And last thing, it's the Australian English and accent. Australian English, this is not the English I was taught in school before I came here. I wasn't shocked in the first 2 months because I couldn't understand anything. Even though I did the English test IELTS before I came here and it was quite good, I still couldn't understand the majority of what the people say. Australians use a lot of slang words.
Australia.
Australia.
Football.
Footy.
Tennis ball.
Tenno.
Biscuit.
Bicky.
Chocolate.
Chocky.
Chocolate biscuit.
Chocky Bicky.
McDonald's.
Macca's.
Laptop.
Lappy.
AC/DC.
Akadaka.
Devastated.
Most of us watched lots of American movies and we sort of get used to American accent. But Australian is very different.
Quite funny. I was in bed sleeping at 2 o'clock this morning. My wife comes in and says, "Oh, the shop's been someone ran into the shop." And I said, "Oh, what?" So I jumped out of bed and all I had was my undies on. And I've walked out the front and I've seen the car smashed, and I've seen the bloke walking back to the car. And so I've walked outside and I said, "Oh, what are you doing, mate? Like, you can't be leaving the scene." And he goes, "Don't be a hero, mate." And I said, "I'm not trying to be a hero, but the police are coming." And he just decided he'd scoot up the road, and I just said, "Nah, it's not going."
I sort of already learned the main words for so many years here, but it's still impossible to know everything. And sometimes when you're around Australians and they talk between themselves, you don't understand what they're talking about. You have to ask what that expression means and they will explain it to you. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable and frustrating, particularly when you're the only one non-native speakers in a company. But yeah, most of the time they'll happily explain it to you. But it's a real work to learn all that. This was something I didn't expect when I came here, and no one prepares you for that. That English you learn, English you taught in school, it's not the same in Australia. But it has its own charm. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you live in Australia or you have been here, let me know in the comments, do you agree with my thoughts or is it just my interpretation, my subjective perception? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.